Thank you very much, Kathy, for that word of welcome. It's a real pleasure for me to be here with all of you today in large numbers. My goodness, this is very flattering. The topic is one, of course, that is dear to us all. It is the question, how we say goodbye. This topic has its origin, actually, in a homily that I preached back in 2003. It was the Feast of All Souls, November 2nd, and it coincidentally happened to fall on a Sunday. And so it was the Sunday Mass, was the Feast of All Souls. And so I thought it would be apropos to preach on what are our Catholic funeral traditions, the traditions surrounding the passing of someone. And in addition to the homily, I also prepared a small pamphlet, the latest edition of which was given out to those who came in, so you should have a sheet of that. I had no idea how popular that pamphlet would become. I remember giving it out at the parish and one elderly lady saying, "I want 3 of them." I said, "What do you need 3 of them for?" She said, "I want to give them to my kids so they know what to do when I die." I hadn't clued into that being an interest, so I'm not sure why you're here. Hopefully that's not your particular concern, but nevertheless, there is obviously a need for education, there is a need for communication around this, and the pamphlet has served its purpose over the years. And as I say, there is a latest edition which was prepared for this conference, which has been given out to you, and which will be posted to my website, bishopdowd.net, afterwards, so that you can get a copy. And it's been printed on white paper so that it's easy for you to photocopy if you so feel the need. And as I say, it has proven to be useful over the years. So that is the remote origin of this. Now, some time ago, Kathy had asked me for a copy of that pamphlet, I remember, and then I had updated it for her, and then she had suggested that I might give a talk at this conference on the very same subject, and so here we are. So I have tried to put together a presentation which combines both the theoretical and the practical, teaching on what is our Catholic theology surrounding death, but also practical experience kind of witnessing, because being a priest, having been a hospital chaplain, I've also seen the nitty-gritty, you might say, of whether it's the dying process or the process of saying goodbye. And so I'm going to share on that as well. This means that we essentially have 3 topics that we will look at. Why we say goodbye, just to sort of set the stage. Understanding death with the eyes of faith. Not everybody who dies has faith, or not all those surrounding a person has faith. And so what does faith change? What difference does it make? And then the subject, how we say goodbye. But obviously the how is informed by the why, and also informed by our faith, which is why that's our final topic. Now, the first interesting thing to note for us as human beings is that we actually do say goodbye. There have been many archaeological studies done of early human beings, and some of the earliest remains that we have that represent religion. In fact, the earliest evidence we have of primitive religion comes from burial rites. In other words, the most ancient religious forms we know of were funerals. The most ancient religious forms we know of surround the question of death. 300,000 years ago. And not even modern humans, more ancient humans, Neanderthals, for example, practiced some kind of burial rituals. The idea of not merely burying someone, but having defined extras that get added on to the fact of burial, we have evidence from 100,000 years ago. Bodies that were stained with pigment. They were decorated, in a sense. The bodies were prepared for burial. Or they were placed in special positions to show a kind of honor and meaning to the body. So this is something that runs extremely deep. The need, the desire to say goodbye in a ritualized way is something that is very, very ancient in human culture. Where does this come from? What is the origin of this? Why do we do this? Well, the Church, in its reflection, particularly at Vatican II in the 1960s, gave a very interesting reflection, a summary, you might say, of the position why we do this, not just as Catholics, but just as human beings. This is a quote from Gaudium et Spes, one of the documents of Vatican II. It is in the face of death that the riddle of human existence grows most acute. Not only is man tormented by pain and by the advancing deterioration of his body, but even more so by a dread of perpetual extinction. He rightly follows the intuition of his heart when he abhors and repudiates the utter ruin and total disappearance of his own person. He rebels against death because he bears in himself an eternal seed which cannot be reduced to sheer matter. In other words, coming from our Catholic tradition is an acknowledgement that the human person, although we are mortal in our bodies, we are immortal in our souls, and we have a kind of primitive instinct about that drives us to reject, in some ways, the mortality of our body, to say to ourselves, that can't be the end. And so, we very naturally want to, first of all, speculate about what comes next, and also to do things that mark the transition from one stage of human existence to another. And that transition, of course, is the transition we call death. But there is, as I say, this indestructible seed that we know we possess in our hearts. There's an instinct about it. And that is why in human cultures, every human culture really, all around the world and all through time, even going back hundreds of thousands of years, there is this drive to mark that passage in a special way.